Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. If you're a first-time viewer, it's great to have you here. So before I go any further, I'd just like to say thanks to everybody who liked my latest video and who commented, and I'd like to thank everybody who's engaged with the channel so far and who's subscribed. I really appreciate your participation, your support. It means a lot to me. This is only a small channel, and I appreciate everyone who's kind enough to watch my productions, if you were, and to comment and to like and to subscribe and what have you. So thank you. Okay, now what are we talking about today? Glad you asked. Today we're going to be looking at this book. It's called The Batavia's Graveyard by Mike Dash. So The Batavia's Graveyard is it's a factual book. It's a historic book. You could say maybe it's even a historic true crime book. The basic, I'm going to give you the basic outline of what happens. I'm not going to spoil the ending. Okay, so I just want to give you enough information so you can decide if you'd like to read it or not. I would highly recommend that you do give this a try because it's a really, really great read. Okay, so what's it about? So what is the Batavia? You may be familiar with this story because there are lots of books. There are lots of other books about it, and you can find stuff about it on YouTube as well. There've been some documentaries, but if you're not familiar with it, a bit of background: the Batavia was a ship, okay, and it was a Dutch East Indiaman. It was a trading ship, and it was part of the fleet of the Dutch East India Company, which in that period, in the 1600s, was an extremely powerful trading body. So our story takes place in 1628. What basically happened is the Batavia was on its maiden voyage to Java, which is modern-day Jakarta, from the Netherlands. It had 341 people on board, crew and passengers, and it was loaded down with goods and also with precious metals and lots of other valuables. On board the ship was an apothecary, which in those days, well, that's like a kind of chemist, an apothecary called Geronimus Cornelius, and he will become very, very important as the book progresses. I nearly said the flight, the journey, the voyage. Was pretty uneventful, although it has to be said that travelling in this period would have been incredibly unpleasant for anybody. The Dutch East Indiaman in this period was the most sophisticated piece of machinery at this time on the face of the earth. It was an incredibly well engineered piece of work, but despite its sophistication for its time, the conditions on board would have been terrible. And during the voyage, before anything major happened, there were already some mumblings from the crew who weren't really very happy about the conditions and how their captain was treating them and so on. And Geronimus Cornelius was kind of inveigling himself into these kinds of discomfort, these kinds of conspiracies. So anyway, everything was going fine until the ship ran aground on a reef, okay, off the coast of Western Australia. So in this time, this was an uncharted area, and it ran aground on this reef during the night. And there were a chain of islands nearby, a chain of tiny islands that were uncharted. So basically, obviously, the people, the crew, the passengers abandoned ship. They try to make their way to the island to try and swim there, and some dozens of people did die trying to make the crossing. But most of the people on the ship, I think well over 200 people, managed to survive. They managed to make it to the nearest island, and they managed to salvage goods and provisions, food, water. Obviously, you know what provisions are. Duh. And this was just as well, because the island that they originally rocked up on appeared to be completely barren. There didn't appear to be any fresh water, and there was certainly no game, no vegetation, anything like that, nothing they could live off. So anyway, once they'd managed to get onto the island and what have you, the captain who survived the wreck, his name was Pelsart. The captain took one look at the situation. He decided, okay, well, I'm going to take the lifeboat. It has to be said they had a couple of boats as well. They had a couple of lifeboats. So Pelsart, the captain, decided to take a small crew, man one of the lifeboats, and head off to Java to get help. So, in the meantime, the rest of the survivors are all left on this island, okay? And Geronimus Cornelius, if I'm not wrong, he was a sort of junior merchant officer on the ship, so he had some ranking. So when Pelsart left, I think, if I'm not wrong, Cornelius was the ranking officer, or he was one of the people with some official pull. And he basically used his pull, to take over and to institute a reign of terror on the island. He essentially set up a kind of mini kingdom. When I say island, it wasn't just one island; it was like a chain of islands. And the survivors, branched out into a couple of other islands as well. I think there was the main island where the main camp was, and then I think there was another camp as well. So Cornelius began his own kind of reign of terror. And of course, in opposition to this, there was another group of people who kind of like set themselves up in opposition to him. And that's the basic premise of what happened so far. I'm not going to spoil the rest of the story for you. The book itself goes into a great deal of detail. It's very, very readable. And as I said about The Killer of Little Shepherds in my previous review, and if you haven't seen that review, I would urge you to watch it because it is truly a life-changing work. And I don't see how anyone can go without watching it, really, if I'm completely honest and unbiased. But anyway, this book also reads like a thriller. It's superbly written. Mike Dash is a really engaging author. It's very, very interesting. I've just given you like the real bare bones of the basic story. I haven't gone into any detail at all about the what happens on the island, and most of the book is about what takes place on the island. I've just told you basically the start of the story, as it were. It's a very, very, very gripping story. I mean, really, it sounds callous, but I'm surprised, honestly, that no one's ever made a film about this, because it would be done well, it would be an extremely good film. It would be an extremely good like mini-series or something. Now, that sounds really, really callous, because it's important to remember that the events in this book really did happen, and people really did suffer and die on these islands. And so I'm not trying to be callous. I'm just giving an idea. I'm just trying to give you an idea of how dramatic this story actually was. Another interesting point is that there have been many, many archaeological excavations on the island. Part of the Batavia itself is in a museum in Australia, I believe, where you can go and visit part of it that's been salvaged, and you can visit and you can see lots and lots of artifacts that have been retrieved from the island. Because obviously a great deal of stuff was left there, including human remains. People who died or who were murdered on the island were just buried in shallow graves, and human remains, skeletons, have been unearthed for decades around on the Albaros Islands. If I'm not wrong, until recently, in 2018, I think recently a skeleton was retrieved from under a fisherman's hut. The fisherman's hut had been built over the site of where this person had been buried. And decades ago, they found the skull of this person. And in 2018, there was another dig, and they found the rest of the body. So, even today, human remains are being found, artifacts are being found from that time. And interestingly enough, I know, I can't go into that. It will be a spoiler. I don't want to mention anything. Okay, so the Batavia's Graveyard. I'd highly recommend it. It's a very, very, very good read. It's not dry at all. It's not boring. Do yourself a favour and check it out. Okay, so that concludes the video for today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to tune in to my next video, when you will have the exciting opportunity to watch my next video. Okay, thanks for watching, and bye for now.